our brilliant cupcake artist, our animal lover, our dancer, our fashionista.
Amber, a force to be reckoned with, a tornado in pink.
Amber, a Unitarian Universalist who lived her faith through service to others.
There is so much we can say about our Amber, who graced our earth for a quarter of a century, which was not nearly a long enough time, but a time for which we are immensely thankful.
When we think of Amber, there's a certain musical that comes to mind that had a song in it called I Enjoy Being a Girl. I'm a girl, and by me that's only great. I am proud that my silhouette is curvy, that I walk with a sweet and girlish gait, with my hips kind of swivelly and swervy. And the song also includes some other lines. I adore being dressed in something frilly. I drool over dresses made of lace. I talk on the telephone for hours with a pound and a half of cream upon my face. But she didn't go in for some of the stereotypical roles of the 1950s that make up other parts of this song that we are leaving out. Her recent venture into kickboxing, where she was the only woman in a class of men, at first flustered her instructor. She was tough, but still girly, the only member of the class to wear pink boxing gloves.
Amber, the young woman who fully enjoyed a girly part of life, was expected to be born in Charleston, West Virginia, but instead was born in Portsmouth, Ohio, where her mother, Trina, went into labor during a family visit. So Amber began life by setting her own schedule. Her first 2 years were spent here in West Virginia, and then she moved to Florida with her biological mother, Trina. It was in Florida that she developed two of her lifelong loves, a love for animals and a love for dancing. Even before she was born, there were animals in Amber's family. Her first word, in fact, wasn't mama or dada. It was Iba-ook. Her way of saying, Shiba dog. The name of the family cat. She expected to have cats and dogs around her, so when she came here to live, it was fortunate that Mary Beth also had cats and dogs, and that Amber had her own cat, Kitty. Kitty was always tiny and initially looked so pathetic that no one else would choose her. But Amber knew she was meant to be Kitty's human, and Kitty began purring the moment she arrived home. Kitty was grateful to Amber, a rare trait, in fact, to find in a cat. Amber couldn't stand to see an animal mistreated, even on television. She was known to cry if anything on TV showed animal cruelty. It is only fitting that Amber's special puppy, Buffy, and Henson, is here with us today in the front row. Amber's lifelong love of dance was nurtured by her African-American babysitter's teenage daughters. They thought it was fun to teach this little white toddler how to dance. And we can tell you they were good teachers, not only of dance, but of giving Amber the sensitivity and lack of prejudice to select friends from a wide spectrum of people. Another trait Amber developed as a young child was no matter her mood, especially if she was angry and pouty, if you pulled out a camera, she was immediately smiling. And there are many pictures of Amber here today, and we can see that over the years the camera loved her. She and the camera had a great relationship.
You could say that it was unfortunate that life became precarious for Amber in Florida. Or you could say it was very fortunate because she ended up at age 12 returning to West Virginia to live with her mom person, Mary Beth Kirshner. Not too long before Amber moved here, Mary Beth's friend Debbie Rutherford gave Mary Beth a reading and said she was going to be a mother. Mary Beth thought that was way less likely than the biblical story predicting Sarah giving birth. She remembers Sarah laughed. But we know what happened to Sarah. Mary Beth's child Amber came through a telephone call from a friend of Trina. The friend called to say that Trina was unable to take care of Amber and wondered if there was a relative who could take her in. Mary Beth said for the first time she understood what people meant when they say, "The Lord put a burden on my heart." Mary Beth realized she couldn't bear that a child she was related to would get lost in the Florida child protection system. She knew that becoming a mom would either be the right, perfect thing or a disaster, or, like for most parents, both. She talked with Amber on the phone and found her to be unself-consciously charming. Sight unseen, she accepted Amber into her home at the end of July 2000. Mary Beth had studied parenthood under an excellent tutor, her mother, Pearl, and felt okay about becoming a mom, with all its agony and ecstasy and everything else in between. Both were very brave.
And life changed for both of them. Amber enthusiastically embraced her new home, declaring Mary Beth's apartment the nicest place she had ever lived. Kelly Kaufman recalls that almost as soon as Amber arrived, the house filled with kids. They were everywhere. Amber was outgoing and easily made friends, and Mary Beth's sister Nancy remembers that there was a time that whenever she saw Amber, her hair was a different color. Remember that. Amber transferred from Jefferson Davis Middle School in Florida, not knowing who Jefferson Davis was, to Horace Mann Middle School here in Charleston. I don't know if she knew who he was either, but at first, the academics were difficult. School was more a place to network and make friends than to study. Amber dreaded getting her report card because of her grades, and Mary Beth dreaded it because she would have to fuss at her and that would raise her blood pressure. So on one occasion, when report cards were due, Amber told Mary Beth they were delayed 2 days because the school printer broke. But when she put on her coat, the dreaded report card fell out of her pocket. She wasn't able to let herself get away with anything, actually. And Mary Beth admits she didn't always help because she sometimes saw her flaws apparent was that she couldn't help but laugh at Amber's antics. Mary Beth remembered that shortly after Amber arrived, spoons seemed to disappear from the kitchen drawer, never to be seen again. It turns out that Amber liked to eat little boxes of cereal on the way to the bus stop, but didn't know what to do with the spoons, so she threw them away. When Mary Beth commented about the disappearing spoons, they stopped disappearing. But it was quite a while before Amber confessed that she had been responsible. Mystery solved.
Good family friend Kelly was concerned that things worked out well for both Mary Beth and Amber. The three of them went out to breakfast, and Mary Beth began to instruct Amber on the importance of good manners, especially when eating out. The more Mary Beth talked, the lower Amber slumped under the table until her head was about level with the tabletop, at which point she leaned over her plate and slurped down the egg. Kelly figured out that things would work out fine. And they pretty much did. Although Mary Beth needed to meet once with her teachers at Horace Mann over some issues. At the meeting, Mary Beth talked about how brave she thought Amber was to take the risk of coming here to live, and the teachers didn't know anything about that part of her background. A couple of years after the egg incident, a much better time happened at a restaurant on Mother's Day when Amber and Mary Beth took Mary Beth's mother, Pearl, out for dinner. Amber gave Pearl a Happy Mother's Day grandma card, the first time she called Pearl her grandmother. She put a note in the card thanking Pearl for telling Mary Beth that she needed a home, and concluded with, "I really love Mary Beth and you." Later, Pearl asked Mary Beth if she'd known about the card beforehand, but Mary Beth had not. It was a moment of pride for Mary Beth to be there with her child, who was impressing Mary Beth's mom. For Mary Beth, it was the best Mother's Day present ever, a memory for the ages.
Any of us that knew Amber knew that she enjoyed making noise and being with people. So it was natural that she became a cheerleader, known for her great ability at jumping, jumped like a kangaroo, they said. She enjoyed cheering at Horace Mann, Capitol High, for a short time at West Virginia State until academics took the highest priority. When Amber asked Mary Beth to make her sweet potato dish for the end of her year cheerleading potluck dinner at Capitol, Mary Beth said they would make it together so that Amber would have a signature dish she could always take anywhere and anytime it was needed. Amber's greatest joy at Capitol High was learning to be a theater makeup artist. It is a credit to R.J. Hattie, that on days when Amber would wake up and not want to go to school, she would make herself go so she wouldn't miss theater and seeing her many theater friends. Or in being seen in public with theater makeup on. Once after class, Amber looked like she had a gaping hole in her neck. She was hungry and wanted Mary Beth to take her to Wendy's on the way home. As you can imagine, nothing like a mother getting glared at for bringing her daughter with an unsightly wound in her place when people are trying to eat. Amber loved it.
As her ministers, we have had the joy of seeing Amber grow from a teen into a still fun-loving but responsible young adult. We have seen her blossom at West Virginia State University, where most recently she served as president of CBS, the school's business students organization. We remember her excitement at meeting Dr. Middekew and going to work in her office, and remarking that Dr. Middekew had opened a whole new world to her. She enjoyed organizing the office and finding things that students needed. It was a good match for their perfectionisms. Amber shared with Dr. Middekew about an exam in her senior seminar class that no one had done well on. The highest grade anyone had received was an 86. Amber was next highest with 80. Everyone was telling Amber how well she had done, but Amber couldn't accept their compliments. The 80 was not up to Amber's standards. So when Dr. Middekew told Amber, "You should have got 90," Amber said, "Thank you." For 2 years, Amber enjoyed being a resident assistant in Dawson Hall. She loved her girls and being there for them. She stayed up until 5 a.m. one night when someone needed her, even though she had a test later that day. Amber's friend Casey said that after a while, girls competed to get on her floor. She always had a group of girls in her room, and they said she made such a difference in their lives. She organized social and educational events in her role as RA. She started a new campus community effort, collecting clothes for Covenant House, and signed up her floor to adopt a family at Christmas. She sponsored a session on ovarian cancer and was excited that it was so successful, no one wanted to leave. They kept wanting to stay and ask questions. She became known for her artistry with cupcakes. Hers were the best. She made mascot yellow jacket cupcakes for a couple of events at State, and one of the department heads ordered them for a faculty meeting. People were surprised to learn that the yellow jackets were edible decorations. they were almost too beautiful to eat. We know the West Virginia State campus community will miss her deeply, from the cafeteria workers who made her omelets to the president's office, where Dr. Hemphill remembers her as one of the first students to greet him.
Through all of her years here, in addition to Mary Beth, there has been another constant in Amber's life, and that is this congregation and Unitarian Universalism. Mary Beth wisely insisted that a condition of Amber's joining her household was going to church because an ethical education and getting immersed in values would be worth it. It does take a village to raise a child, and this place, UUC, became Amber's village. And we thank all of you for helping raise her and for being role models for her. We have been fortunate that Amber made this faith her own, that she stayed with the youth group through high school, through college, that she joined as a full adult member, and that her first tattoo at age 16 was of the flaming chalice. We're all especially proud of how she led the teen group in taking on the Covenant House Adoptive Family Project each year. She got us to give enthusiastically, even if it did lead some of us to call her the Christmas Nazi. She was persistent. But it gave her the experience to carry out this tradition at stake, and it made Covenant House important to her. We thank the men of this congregation for caring about her. When Amber arrived here, the experiences from her mother's boyfriends had left her wanting to have nothing to do with adult men. But then Minister Linda Roach, with his patience and kindness, Mike Ola, a member, with his work with the religious education program, the welcome and hugs from Nate Eastman, who was our door guarder, welcomer, began to change her. And Nate even sponsored her one year at Summer Institute. Wow, what a gift that was. She developed a relationship with her biological father and her Uncle Wayne. Her view of men changed, improved, and this helped make her a better, stronger person. Her loyalty to Reverend Linda Roche was such that when we, Rose and I, became the ministers here, she was determined not to like us because she liked him so much and didn't want him to leave. But fortunately, that didn't last too long, and I became another okay man to her.
Amber really worked on living up to the principles that guide us. You can see them on the wall. They surround us. One time at Summer Institute, she walked up to Mel and she said, "I need my minister. I know we're supposed to honor the worth and dignity of every person. Did you see that girl over there? I'm so mad at her I could kill her." Like many of us, she continued to struggle with living up to our first principle, to affirm the worth and dignity of every person. As recently as this past Christmas, she told her friend David that she wasn't really a good UU because she didn't like people enough. Because everyone had worth and dignity unless she really didn't like them. She was kind of quirky like that. If she couldn't live up to all her ideals, she would act like she had double standards, saying that what was inappropriate for someone else was appropriate for her. Amber's being here grew our youth group. She brought her friends with her and changed the atmosphere of this congregation. Mary Beth would pull up in her little car on Sunday mornings, and it would be like a clown car unloaded. How many teens can you cram into a car to get to church and have them spill all over the parking lot? Amber and Rachel Melinda got to be the best of friends with each other, and Rachel's dad, Jeff, became advisor to the teens. Amber's outgoingness helped Rachel get up in front of the congregation to speak. Rachel was, still is of course, brilliant, and her studiousness was a great example for Amber. Mary Beth figured that if you hang out with smart people, it makes you smarter. so she was glad the two hung out together. We were fortunate that Amber loved doing office work here and volunteered as time permitted. She said her ideal job, if we could afford full-time office help with benefits, would have been to run our church office, actually to use her organizing skills to run the church and tell us ministers what to do. She was also interested in working with a nonprofit like Covenant House. She ultimately wanted to use her business degree in a service organization. Her thoughtfulness came out in so many ways. At Easter, she loved putting on bunny ears and hiding eggs for the annual Easter egg hunt. She put eggs out that could be seen prominently and were usually quickly taken by the older kids, while she was directing the little ones to the eggs that were most hidden. When a Sunday school class asked students to draw their images of God, she made sure hers was blocks of color, but it was not going to be in the image of a human, because she didn't want the image of God to be something people would fight over.
Our congregation has an annual family camp out on Memorial Weekend that includes a worship service on Sunday morning. Now, Amber would come during the day, but her girliness would come out. She didn't want to get nature all over herself, so she didn't camp. But at Summer Institute, she was all involved. They stay in dorms there at Kenyon College, so Amber didn't have to worry about living in a tent. But she did choose to get nature all over herself, from head to toe, following a storm that created a great place for the teens to slide in the mud. And they came through the dining hall so we all could see. Amber's life touched more people than we'll probably ever know. We've heard from so many who had a conversation with her that impacted their lives, how she was important to them. We know each of you here has your own personal remembrance. As Christine Chadwick, the president of our congregation, said, she was so smart and friendly and incredibly easy to like. I loved having such a vibrant young adult in our congregation. As a fellow UU, I'm proud of who she was and what she accomplished. And Christine concludes, with what we all feel, rest in peace. Rest in peace, dearest Amber. I know everyone would like to speak and reflect and share. And we hope that during the reception, a lot of you will take the time to do that. We want to share a few other reflections from family and family-like friends. From Mary Beth's sister, Nancy Mullen. I know today is about Amber and how much she is loved. But I want my sister to know how proud of her I am for taking care of Amber and for teaching her what a family truly is. This is a hard time for all of us, and especially for Mary Beth. But I want her to know that in honoring her, I honor Amber.
And from Emily Nida. When Amber helped me with my homework and I used a calculator, she took the calculator away and told me using it was cheating and wouldn't let me use it.
And from the Reverend Lynn DeRoche, Amber's first minister. Mary Beth and friends, Baptist preacher Harry Emerson Fosdick once said, one always has to make it worth living. All the people for whom life has been abundantly worth living have made it so by an interior, creative, spiritual contribution of their own. And Amber, I know, lived this. As a teen, she was finding her way in the way teens always do, by discovering life, by living it. Well, sometimes that involved pushing boundaries that she knew others she didn't know. It all helped her find her way, all of it, into adulthood. Dee and I grieve with you for a wonderful life cut short. Our blessings be on all. I invite each of us again into a moment of just a silent reflection and a thought.